Welcome to the Hotel Connoisseurs, where we listen to tunes and we talk about them, and that's pretty much the brunt of it.
I give you credit for coming up with these catchphrases for every episode because I would never think to do it. It really is impressive.
It's not always just the gears are turning. Like I gotta do something fun here. As you could tell by the intro, we will be talking about Hotel California by the Eagles. Now, my personal experience with the Eagles prior to listening to this is the fact that I already have this bias toward the Eagles in the fact that I think they're easily one of the greatest rock bands of all time.
Okay. I don't think that's a very uncommon opinion.
Not uncommon at all. They're very popular, they're very talented, and they're very renowned.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Still going today. Is that not?
I believe so. I don't think. I'm not sure
not
any
original
new music.
I don't know if it's
but they
all
have
the original members.
I'm kicking myself for missing when they came to Atlanta with the Hotel California tour,
That's right.
where they literally just performed this album front to back, and then followed by a greatest hits.
Now this is an album you would want to hear front to back
at
concerts. Some albums you don't want to hear front to back at concerts. At Brendan Urie, at Panic at the Disco, at Viva Las Vengeance. That's for another day. But this is an album that if you got to hear it, all the way from the beginning to the end of the concert, would be unforgettable. It's a classic.
And that's one of the things that really made me excited to cover this album, because I'm like, I want to experience what that concert would have been. Yeah. Let me see if this is an album that I would have been excited to hear.
Yeah. And
I guess we can just go ahead and get right into it. Well, the album art is actually really cool. I don't know if you knew that that's actually the Beverly Hills Hotel.
I did not.
And so they ended up getting that photo taken with just the yellow sky and everything. Definitely one of the most iconic album covers, I think, ever.
Yeah, I agree. And I had seen it before, just like with our last episode with Nirvana. These legendary albums, these albums that everybody's heard of before, they always have the most recognizable covers. And I think that actually plays a big role into how well the album can be received. I had never heard this album front to back before. I'd obviously heard Hotel California, the song. I'd heard of the album. I knew it was renowned. I knew it was a popular album back when it came out in 76. Is that right?
I believe so. I think it might actually be
mid-70s or something.
Yeah,
somewhere around that time.
I'll have to get the actual date.
But yeah, I was excited to actually hear it for all the way through and see what all the hype was about. See what people have been raving about for the past 47 years now, I guess. 46 years. I know Spotify, the only reason I just saw
76.
76?
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
They remastered it in 2013, which is what I was able to listen to. So I just saw 2013 remastered, but I looked it up too, and I thought it was 76 or somewhere around there.
Now, the background of this album is... So I love the story behind some of the biggest albums of all time. I really love doing that with Nirvana. This one is no exception, because... Usually when you think of the Eagles, what song do you usually think of?
Hotel California.
Exactly.
Of course.
What if I told you that before this album even came out, where their most famous song came from, they had already released a greatest hits album?
Okay, then I have to ask, how long have the Eagles actually been around as a band?
The Eagles dominated the 70s.
Okay.
All of the 70s. And the crazy thing is, Hotel California, if I got the statistics right, is the third best-selling album of all time.
Oh, okay, wow.
Of all time.
Wow.
Do you know what the number one best-selling album of all time is?
Thriller.
The greatest hits album I just mentioned.
Are you serious?
They own number one and number two best-selling... number three, my bad.
Okay, well, that's
best-selling album of all time. And Hotel California isn't the one in number one. It's their greatest hits one.
Which came before Hotel California.
Which came before it.
Wow. That is what you call a band that never misses. They had the greatest hits album before their best album. That's insane.
It's so good.
Out of curiosity, what's number two? Do you know? I'd be curious.
No, I wasn't able to get I wasn't able to get those stats. It would be really fascinating to see what's sandwiched between the two Eagles albums.
I would have guessed Thriller. That would have been my guess.
That is a solid guess.
Do you want to look it up real quick? We have time.
Yeah. No, sure.
I'll stall the audience real quick.
Yeah, totally.
This is actually quite riveting stuff. I'm very intrigued to see what...
Let's see. I'm having trouble finding it. That'll have to be something I'll have to look up at some point.
I teased the audience. Now I feel teased too. I've been really looking forward to this information. I was looking forward to figure out what number two was. We'll figure it out once it's all once we finish recording.
But this album was very successful in the 1978 Grammys, The title track won Record of the Year, and the song New Kid in Town won Best Arrangement for Voices. And 2018, the album was certified 26 times platinum.
26 times.
That means 26 million sales.
I've always wondered what that 26 times.
Yeah,
26
platinum
times.
means
Wow.
millions.
My word.
So also,
That's a lot of money. Holy cow. It's a lot of sales.
little side
Side note?
side note. This is the very first album to feature the guitarist Joe Walsh, who's best known for the song "Life's Been Good to Me So Far." He's
You
the
mean that
guitarist
song
for
that I only know about because of the Eminem? The Eminem. Okay, gotcha.
And apparently, there's a new version out that's absolutely terrible.
Who sings it again?
I forget. I just kind of heard it on alternative radio and then wanted to throw my radio out of the car.
Yeah, I remember.
So
you talking
I
about it.
just
I
didn't even take any notes other than that.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's actually really cool.
And he actually gives vocals to one of the songs on here, which I think is really cool. I love when bands fully embrace, they don't have a lead singer. They have, sure, this guy does most of the songs, but then I sing, and then you sing. They all...
You got a couple good singers on there, you know? A couple good... Who are the band members of the Eagles, by the way? I mean, if that's...
I know the lead singer's Don Henley.
Okay.
Joe Walsh on guitar.
Okay.
We
got Google again. This one will be easy to figure out.
The current members are... What? The current members are Don Henley, Joe Walsh, Timothy B. Schmidt, but he was part of it from 77 to 80, then 94 to 2016, and then 2017 to present. So he's been tenured off and on.
Okay.
Currently, right now, rhythm and lead guitars, backing and lead vocals from 2017 till now is Vince Gill. The country music.
Yeah.
The country.
Huh.
So that's...
Wow.
That's
very
interesting.
You never know what you'll find on
But
Wikipedia.
Glenn Frey was a member of the band. He was rhythm and lead guitars.
Sounds familiar. That's the name sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure those were the main folks.
Okay.
There were some others, but I think that's pretty much the core.
Okay. Cool.
Lineup, which this lineup was so good. Like they just sound incredible. But I guess we're gonna go right into it with one of the most overanalyzed, most theorized classic rock songs ever, Hotel California.
It's an absolute banger.
Welcome to the Hotel California. Such a lovely place, such a lovely place.
It's one of those that I told you I had only heard this song. I never sought out this song personally.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't know? It's just like Smells Like Teen Spirit with Nirvana. Who hasn't heard the song Hotel California before? What kind of rock, what size of the rock that you're living under? How big does that rock have to be for you to have never heard this song in your life? I've heard it all the time when I go to Publix and I shop at Publix and it's playing on the supermarket radio station. But I've never actually sought it out to listen to it for all that it's worth. And man, that is 6.5 minutes of just
I really
bliss.
feel like
Absolute
this
bliss.
could be one of the greatest rock songs of all time. Like just in the composition of it, and it's just incredible. It's like the beginning is very haunting, and it really sounds like it's just opening a storybook of like some sort of haunted mansion or something. And the little details in the production I love, like how you have the 2 beats before the verses, the do 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 on a dark desert high. You have that. The little funky bass line, the do while they're singing, it's just...
That's another thing about the Eagles, too, because I had never really heard the Eagles before. I'm really dating myself when I say all this stuff into the microphone, that I've really not explored as much music as I'd like to, but that's honestly not the kind of sound that I expected them to be giving off. I expected almost a more, given the time period, Aerosmithy rock sound. You know what I mean?
Were actually, this album was a major turn of genre for them.
Really?
Because in their greatest hits that was released prior, they were more of a country rock group.
Okay. Any comparisons of who would sound like a country rock group?
You might have heard some of their songs. One of my favorite Eagles songs is "Take It Easy, Take It Easy."
And that one came before.
This came before. Have you heard that one?
Possibly. It would be.
But
hard to hear
it's
it,
very like acoustic, and it's like more, I don't know, just has more of a country folksy kind of sound.
Okay.
But this one, they just ditched all of that and went for something completely different, and this song really pulls it off.
It's awesome.
Which in one of the lyrics when he says "warm smell of colitas," I thought, oh, that's some sort of little Spanish dish or something. No, it's actually Mexican slang or Hispanic slang for marijuana.
Really?
So that's fine.
What do you think the song's about? What do you think the song is talking about? What do you think he's writing about here?
I feel like it spells out a great story of like a haunted hotel or whatever, but the song itself, I believe, is very focused on drug use and addiction.
Well, I think it's very. The subject is obviously being wrapped up in something that he's having a hard time being able to escape from, and I don't think California is used randomly. I don't think that's used. I think could be a metaphor for LA lifestyle. It could be a metaphor for that kind of lifestyle.
And they kind of have something to say about California and the hustle and bustle like that too,
Yeah.
which near the end of the album, they start they show that message a little more. So they say they have a lot of opinions on Hollywood in particular.
Yeah.
When it comes to this album, which the Beverly Hills Hotel being on the cover, that's not a coincidence. That's not just the Hotel California in question if they're trying to paint that picture.
No.
It just is. The Beverly Hills Hotel is the encapsulation of what they're trying to talk about here. It's those kinds of riches, which is something that I caught. The little details I was catching when he was talking about the woman who showed him the way when he first got there. He was defining her as a very beautiful, wealthy, free-spirited kind of person. Someone that you would think would have a lot of money, the way she carries herself. So it's almost like this haunting woman is already encapsulating the riches.
There's a lyric in that song, too. You mind if I pull it up? Because I don't want to butcher it.
No. Go right ahead.
Yes, this is it. It's this whole part right here. It's verse 3. Her mind is Tiffany twisted. She's got the Mercedes-Benz. She's got a lot of pretty, pretty boys that she calls friends.
That one has always been so fun to sing along to.
I just think I think when you talk about a girl that's got a lot of pretty, if you're taking that literally, a girl that's got a lot of pretty boys she calls friends, that's probably a girl that you're gonna have a hard time finding to be
making any sort of connection,
being able to rope in to make yours. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a good metaphor if they are talking about California lifestyles, that you'll never quite be satisfied. And you're never going to quite find exactly what you're looking for in that lifestyle. And I just love that lyric, because I think that's a lyric that stands true today. I think that's the lyric that people enjoy. That's 46 years later. I'm like, yeah, I was sitting listening to that in my car. I was like, I get that. Like, I understand exactly what he's trying to say. It's something unattainable. You're looking for happiness in that lifestyle, in her. But that kind of lifestyle, that kind of girl, it's unattainable.
Exactly.
I'm like, dang, that hits deep, man. And I could be reading that totally wrong, but I think that's the beauty of it, is that it's on, you know?
Hang on, there was a direct quote that I got from Glenn Fry, who I just mentioned. Mm-hmm. He said, "Vagary is the primary tool for songwriters."
Absolutely.
That's what they were going for in this song. They wanted to be as vague as possible so people can draw their own conclusions.
And it's funny because in other songs, I was noticing this too. It's like, they're beautifully written songs, but they're also straightforward in some of these songs. Like a couple of the next songs coming up, a couple of those, it's like, you don't really have to question what they're talking about. You know exactly what they're referring to, what they're trying to write about. But vagary is, if that's, I guess that's a word, vagary.
That's what, Glenn Fry said it. So
I trust him. I did not know that was a word, but yeah, I think I totally agree, because you're able to rope in different people from different walks of life if they can all semi-relate to a sort of, to some lyrics, instead of trying to just totally focus on one target audience or one subject. Mm-hmm. And yeah, this song is a perfect example of that.
I want to put some focus on verse 4. Okay. Because some of the lyrics that are on there, like, not until I started really over-analyzing them, I kind of started getting a feel for what they're going for. For one, the very first, and some of these I never caught before. It starts the verse by saying, "Mirrors on the ceiling." Okay. What does that usually make you think of? It usually has sexual connotations.
Oh,
of like having a mirror on the ceiling.
Maybe my mind's not quite as dirty as I thought it was, but
kind of gives the vibe of a sleazy hotel.
Okay.
So it's talking about all these riches and all the hauntedness of it, but really it has all the sleazy stuff you'd find in a little motel or something.
Yeah. Huh. It's interesting.
I mean, it's kind of, there's a lot of references to addiction on here. It says, "And in the master's chambers they gathered for the feast." And when they said they stabbed with their steely knives, he just can't kill the beast. When I first heard that, I thought, oh, so this like a live animal, and they're trying to bring it down before they can cook it or whatever. But I saw an interpretation talking about gathering for the feast. Stab it with their steely knives. Usually steely knives and like knives and stuff like that are associated with cocaine.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And then they said, but they just can't kill the beast. Kill the beast could be a metaphor for breaking addiction.
You continually.
You see?
No, I mean, I'm more or less. You continually blow me away with the things you're able to find in here.
Man,
as you can't
it's
tell,
so crazy about this.
If you can't tell, anyone who's watching our podcast, I am the much more casual listener, which I think adds a nice touch to.
It does,
you know,
yeah.
the one, but you are one more lyrical listener, I think, and two more.
I'm very analytical.
Analytical is a great word for it.
I want to
You're
be
looking
able
for a
that
message.
it really all stems down to what I say every single time. I want to be able to understand it.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna be talking about songs, I want to be able to know.
Absolutely.
Like that way I don't want to miss out on what's there in the song,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean,
I wanna fully appreciate it.
A lot of the beauty of some songs is hidden beneath the surface. And if you're able to find it, that's when you really get to enjoy it.
New Kid in Town.
Yes.
Johnny come lately, the new kid in town. Everybody.
I've heard the title of this one. I never heard it before. What do you think of it?
I think it is like I try to describe songs with images. I think this would be the perfect song to be lying on a beach with a Corona in your right hand, having in your AirPods, listening to as the waves crash. That is one of those songs to me that I'm just like, man, this is just again, and then without analyzing the lyrics too deeply, without analyzing what it's about, to me it just purely in terms of instrumentation is just so soothing.
You know how I
and so
said this
relaxing.
album they were kind of breaking away from their country rock roots?
Yeah.
I think they brought them back in this song
This one a little
especially
bit,
because this is totally a country song, like, and it still holds up so well today that if George Strait were to whip this song out and start singing it, I wouldn't give it a second thought.
Yeah.
It just feels so country by nature.
Yeah.
And the guitar riffs that are in it, Joe Walsh is killing it. I'm really loving the guitar.
That's one of the things I noticed about throughout the whole album. Some of the guitarists, and they're just incredible.
He's killing it.
That's what jumped out at me first, and I was like, man, I'm really going to have a lot of fun with this one, is that sometimes for me, there's not much I feel like you can do that you almost haven't heard with people that play.
Right.
Oh, I thought you were wanting me to drink with you.
Oh,
We haven't done that yet
I
for
was
this
just grabbing
episode.
it. Why not? Boop.
But there's so much it's just the way that it's played, I think, in this album is because there will be parts of there's some songs where it's just a minute or a minute and a half of guitar towards the very end. And for some artists, you listen to it and you're like, all right, let's get this over with.
One of my
This is
favorite
dragging
parts
on.
about this song was it might have been this one. God, I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to them. But there was one song that just ended, like you said, with a lengthy guitar solo, I was loving it. I'm like, more songs need to end with this. Guitar solos are a lost art.
If it doesn't bore you, then it's doing a great job. And I think that's the key, because a lot of these songs, again, that's another thing about this album which I like. It's, I believe, 50 minutes or so long, 49 minutes or so long, but it's 9 songs. So you got a lot of great stuff packed into 9 songs. There doesn't need to be...
It doesn't overstay its welcome.
It doesn't at all.
It gets everything in, and then just, there you go. There's our album. No need to overthink it.
And a lot of the better albums that people look back on as some of the top albums of all time are like that. I want to say Thriller is only 9 or 10 songs. I want to say it's 10. I would say like 10, and it's albums that don't overstay their welcome, that get everything they need to get into the record, in it, in good time. You know, and I think that's what this album does. It's 9 songs, and not a second is wasted.
Now, what do you think of Life in the Fast Lane?
He was too tired to make it. She was too tired to fight about it. Life in the fast lane surely make you lose your mind. Life in the fast lane.
This has
I
been...
had no idea I'd heard this one before until I heard it the first time.
This has been one of my favorite Eagles songs
so
for
catchy.
a while.
Even from the start, it's so catchy. I'm just like,
Funny thing is,
you want to just groove to it.
Another one now. Again, me digging deep into it. If you listen to the lyrics and analyze like what they're talking about, they're so great with using the road imagery and the car imagery that you don't even realize that in this song they're not in a car once. They're all analogies for like drug related and sexual things.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that either. Okay.
It's saying, well, for one, the beginning might be one of my favorite guitar riffs of all time.
I
Let's
totally
just get that
agree.
out there right now.
I was thinking
let's
the
just
same exact thing.
let's just throw
Yes.
that out there real now. I really get some honky tonk vibes
Yes.
from it, and it's
It's-
really cool. Definitely the kind of song you'd be cruising to on like a cross country road trip or something. This is totally like going through the roads of Colorado, blaring it kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
or it's one of those ones to me if like I'm on, like I said, I'm on the highway and I'm going fast, like I put this on and it's like it gets you going, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It gets you energized, gets you pumped up a little bit, but it's also so, I don't want to say funky because it's not funky. It's just catchy.
It's one of those
groovy.
things that
it just gets you moving.
you could say funky. It's making
It's hard to listen to this and not
your
wanna
head
move.
is bopping.
Yes,
your
it's
head
hard to
is
not wanna
grooving.
move
That's
around.
groovy. That'd probably be a good
Groovy
one.
could be a good word for it, but it's just
Groovy
hard
could
to
be-
not want to move around when you hear this song.
And funny thing is, this song is Life in the Fast Lane. The Fast Lane is kind of, it's about a couple that's just living too fast. They're living too much off their own desires and just enjoying all these like drugs and just being very loose.
Yeah.
And when she says near the end, she's like, Doctor, doctor, I think I'm going to crash. I keep thinking it's an actual like car crash.
Yeah.
But crashing as in like, referring to drugs, takes so much that she crash or whatever. And then when he says you have to pay with cash, that's constantly something that is associated with drug dealing.
No receipts.
And
no
then,
trace.
yeah,
No trace
and
that
then
way.
there's just a lot of sexual references if you just listen through it. So it's really fascinating how this whole song, I thought it was about some sort of road trip gone wrong or something, but no, all of it is completely, like they're all analogies for things.
It's and again, it's one of those where I love songs that on the surface, if you're not listening, like for me necessarily, I'm not listening necessarily to dive too deep into the lyrics. I hear it and I'm like, oh man, yeah, let's go. This is catchy. And most
Yeah.
people probably do.
Exactly.
But then you look
That's
into
what a
it-
lot of rock in the day back is.
Yeah.
Listen to any AC/DC and then look up what they're actually talking about. You're like, oh God, I let my kid sing that?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. We were saying the same thing with Nirvana. On it's you never really know what you're singing. You just like what you're hearing, so you're, bopping and singing along to it.
And in
But-
Nirvana's case, it's not really finding creative ways to say it and hide behind and like beat around the bush. But more so, it's just no one can understand me anyway. I'll just say it, and people don't catch it.
if
till
they
look it up.
can't hear what I'm saying, they won't know what it means. That's their logic.
Can't be controversial if they don't understand what you're saying. Come on.
But this was one of my favorite songs on the album, and I had no idea that I'd heard it before until that first guitar riff hit, and I was like, "Yep, okay, I know this one."
Speaking of favorites, the next song really took me off guard. Wasted
What's the
Time.
time?
Wasted time. The autumn leaves that got you thinking.
It's completely different than the rest of the album, but that is one of the most powerful, soulful
Love ballads like that.
I love the
Yes.
high note that he hits near the end. I'm like, dude.
It's
The orchestra backing it was killing me. I love when you incorporate orchestra in any sort of genre.
Oh, of course. And I think it's cool too because a lot of times placing a song like that in an album comes toward at least a little more toward the end of the album, maybe track 7 or 8 in this case. But to have it right there after 3 straight bangers at number 4, I think that shows just how much but the way it still fits perfectly into the album. Like, it was time for a ballad because you had 20 minutes of songs that were like, all right, yeah, these are freaking catchy as hell.
If they gave Hotel California the American Idiot treatment, and I'm not just saying that because I'm wearing the shirt, if they gave it the American Idiot treatment and the fact they turned the album into a Broadway musical,
Yep.
this song would fit like a glove, and it would be the big, like, show-stopping solo that everyone waits for. It would be
Absolutely.
the I Dreamed a Dream of the musical. Is essentially the way I see this song.
When Never Enough from Greatest Showman. It'd be
Never
like that,
Enough would be a good
basically.
one.
Yes.
Yeah, the really heartfelt one that everyone waits for, the big emotional climax. And so early in the album for it to be so
And
emotional.
singing his heart out too, to give full credit where credit's due. I mean, it was
I remember they said that Don Henley, one of the band members, said that they weren't, whenever it came to writing songs or whatever, I think especially this one, they said Don Henley could sing the alphabet. They said he could sing the alphabet and it would be incredible. Like,
Yeah.
he just has that good of a voice.
yeah.
And I love something that doesn't happen. And again, this ties back into, okay, now I've said it out loud, I want a Hotel California musical. I actually really want that now because the reprise, however you want to say it, at the end of it,
Yes.
where it's basically just the tag at the end of the song with like the orchestra. It was beautiful. That is totally something out of a Broadway musical.
It's concept albums like these that are always you can picture them being put to a movie or put to a production like that, and it just is. Yeah, I would pay to see that too. I'd be there opening night. We'd be on Broadway opening night seeing that if they ever did that.
This
That'd be
album
awesome.
also does one of my favorite things in following up a super slow song with a bumpin' song immediately.
Is it Victim of Love?
Yes.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite things people do. One of my favorite examples is when I went to go see one of my favorite concerts. When I went to go see two of my favorite rock bands, Red and Disciple, together at the Underground in Charlotte. I was in the standing room only. I was in the front row. I got to grab the lead singer of Red's hand. It was great. But they were performing. It was their 10th anniversary End of Silence tour, 10th anniversary of their debut album. Yeah. So they whipped out songs that they hadn't played in a long time solely to celebrate that album. And they played the slowest, most heartfelt song they've ever done, called Pieces. Okay. A beautiful piano forward ballad of a song. At the concert, they immediately followed it with their heaviest heavy metal song at the time, Feed the Machine. And I'm like, going from the slowest ever to the most bumpin' rockin' song. I love that. And so they did the exact same thing here, taking that reprise and then going straight into Victim of Love.
Like, you've had your time to be emotional. This ballad just played and it was great. You relaxed a little bit now. Now let's get right back into it.
And I like that the first lyric already sets the scene for the song perfectly. He says, "What love do you got? You should be home, but you're not." Boom! You have you have the whole concept of the song. You're like, "Well, I know what this song's about. Now I don't even need to think about it."
Amen. And this is one of my favorites on the album. This one, I would say, I don't want to say the album's top heavy because that doesn't do justice to the rest of the album.
Yeah.
But just like with Nirvana's, which we reviewed last time, they do put some of the best. These are some of the best songs from that generation that they're putting, just in these top five. And
now that you mention it, I do realize now, looking at the track list, the last three songs of the album are all ballads.
Yeah,
like they're all more on the tender side.
Definitely.
So I can kind of see what you're talking about. It's almost like the reprise in the middle, with the exception of Victim of Love, is kind of the dividing line between, okay, we were rocking, now we're going to take it down a bit.
Exactly. I think artists that know when to do that on albums, like you said, when to do that and when to get right back into the heat of things, that's a skill, because putting albums together in general is a skill. If you want to tell that story properly, you got to figure out which song goes where. And because they're likely not sitting around and recording these songs in order, writing these songs in order, trying to figure out how to piece them together. Right. They're writing songs about, and again, I don't know how this album was created. I'm not speaking from personal knowledge. They're probably writing songs all centering on the same concept, which can be debated, I guess.
They talk about love a lot. There's a lot of drug references. They especially talk a lot about, the expansion of society and the commercialization of things, which I'm really excited to get to a couple songs from now, because I think the album ends just as strongly as it begins, but we're not there quite yet.
But it's like putting together different songs about different topics that all fit in under the guise of one big topic. Yeah. On one big concept.
It's awesome.
That's a skill. That's a real skill. And this, again, some of the best albums do that. And this one is a prime example of telling a story through music, which I love.
Hi there, how are ya? It's been a long time. Seems like...
Now, I feel like I've asked you this like 20 times since our friendship.
Yes.
Have you watched Tommy Boy?
You've asked me that? You probably
have. Have I asked that?
I think so. I don't know.
Have you watched Tommy Boy, though?
No, I have not.
You have not?
I have not.
See, I have a feeling I've asked you that. I have a feeling I've been disappointed with the answer every time.
Okay, tell me what the movie's about, and I'll say if you've asked me that before and if I remember it.
Chris Farley and David Spade?
You told me. Yeah, you told me that before.
Yeah.
I still haven't watched it, no.
Literally, Chris Farley's, greatest film ever. Okay. And... I hate that you haven't seen it, because Pretty Maids All in a Row, he ends up using that in a line in the movie. And I thought this song was going to be, I don't know, maybe a little more humorous, maybe a little more rockin', but it was a really tender and heartfelt song. But I was chuckling the whole time because I was hearing Chris Farley saying it before going cow tipping.
That's awesome, and it's funny to me because I believe this song, it starts out almost. I was like making sure my radio wasn't broken. It starts out with a good 20 seconds of just kind of slowly building into it, and you don't know what you're gonna get. You don't know if it's gonna go into some huge, like whatever it's gonna. But it is a really good song. It's a really nice, and this is kind of when the album turns. I feel like.
And this is the one song on the album that Joe Walsh sings.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I did not know that.
He kills it.
I knew it sounded a little different. But
It's
I didn't know for
really
sure.
good.
Okay.
It's the first song that he wrote for them too, being part of the band.
Gotcha.
And it's just I love how somber and contemplative, however you say it, how like he's
Probably
really,
contemplative,
and it's about meeting old friends and old partners and the reminiscent thoughts that come with it. It's just a very simple,
provokes nostalgia.
very nostalgic song. Yeah,
Again,
very
that is-
simple in its in concept, but it's the execution of it is phenomenal.
Nostalgia is one of the most effective ways to produce emotion in music. I think if you can evoke nostalgia from the listener, you got them. They're hooked, and they're gonna love that song because nostalgia is a drug, and I think this song capitalizes on that for sure.
Okay, now even me and all of the crazy notes that I take, I don't really have much for Try and Love Again.
You're out there on your own, where your memories can find you. Like a circle.
Try and Love Again. I didn't. That was one of the ones too.
It was
And
just
again,
again, it wasn't bad, but I feel like same thing we said about Nirvana previously. It's just one of those songs where if it came on in the background,
Yeah.
Lounge Act, that's what it was.
Lounge Act, that was the one,
on
yeah.
Nevermind.
Was that it?
Yeah, Lounge Act.
Yeah, that was.
And how I was like, well, this is just one of those songs that come on in the background. And, I mean, I wouldn't turn it down for that, but it's not the kind of song I would seek out.
Yeah.
That's how this one is.
Fits the
Then
concept.
again, it's an incredible song.
Yeah, it fits the concept, and it makes sense where it is in the album. It's just a matter of not every song is going to have the same effect, especially on albums that are considered, in the holy, to be like a holy grail, basically, of this genre of music and music in general. Not every song is going to be.
But even that being said,
quite
the
on that level.
lowest points of this album are the highest points in literally any other rock band's
Totally
career.
agree. Yeah.
Like, they are... The album grips you the whole time. Even if this one does lull a little more, it still earns its spot.
Absolutely.
But it is definitely more like background music for me, or breakup music, which now that I've got it tied down, I'm never going to have to deal with that kind of music ever again.
I hope I don't either. I hope I don't have to deal with that ever again either, but I'm not tied down. Just FYI. That's not me. That's not me putting my resume out there. I just, that was literally not that at all. Trust me. Just was,
oh man, shooting his shot over the airwaves.
No, that was not what I was doing. Disregard that. We'll cut that out of the.
Oh
edit
yeah,
that out.
no,
Edit
oh no,
that
yeah,
out,
oh no, I'm totally editing that out.
Winks at camera. I saw that. Don't give him that look.
Last song is The Last Resort.
She heard about a place people were smiling. They spoke about the red man's ways.
I've been excited for this one because when I first heard it, I was busy, and it seemed like the song was really it's one of those you really have to dedicate time to.
Of course.
To really analyze and enjoy. And so I didn't have much for it. Then I went back to re-listen to it, and holy cow, it is a beautiful song, and the story it tells is crazy.
And you mentioned the orchestra on it too, and I'm just like you. We're big John Bellion fans. And we love the totally off topic, and I'll be very quick. But there's an album called Human Condition. At the end of that, it's got an orchestra.
It's only one of our favorite albums ever.
It's my favorite album of all time, and
it's in my top 5. So yeah,
it's got a big orchestra at the end. Anytime you can perfectly, like I said, put a bow on an album using an orchestra at the end to kind of tie everything together. Oh, it hits you in a different way, and that became one of my favorite songs on the album too.
My first two thoughts that I came up with were I could see where Truce by 21 Pilots got its inspiration.
Okay.
The piano at the beginning sounds just like
that's very good
Truce.
thought. Okay.
Though it is very simple. That's an easy kind of thing to do. And how the first line, she came from Providence, the one in Rhode Island. That's clever, but it did make me grin a little bit in the fact that that's kind of cheesy, but I'll let it slide.
They've earned some cheesy. By this point, they've earned a little cheesy. You know what I mean?
I couldn't decide if
And
it
it
was
fits.
creatively cheesy or cheesily creative.
Yes. Yes. 100% yes.
And apparently the song was inspired by Don Henley's girlfriend, and the whole song is about the commercialization of a once beautiful area, going from like a natural paradise to like a quote paradise of like riches and neon and greed,
Yeah.
and like taking a nice little valley and then turning into Vegas and stuff like that, which is what I was talking about in the beginning. They have a lot of references to wealth and to California and that kind of LA lifestyle, and it really drives home in this song. It's basically the concept of the entire song. So to talk about that stuff in Hotel California, then end it with a song that it's the core focus,
Yeah.
it really ties it together.
It's cool too because I personally I think that's a really cool message, especially for a band that's as big as them, to acknowledge the fact that maybe the California life and the life of a rock star, if you will, isn't all it's cut out to be. Because it seems to me like that's I don't want to say it's the entire concept, but that's the overlaying concept of the album, is that this, I guess we'll call it a California life, this Hollywood life, if you will, Beverly Hills life, whatever you want to call it. It takes you away from realizing the joys of what you mentioned in that last song, like what a regular, laid back, relaxed life could look like, because you're always chasing
and it really
something
goes
more.
back to, and Life in the Fast Lane, now that I think about it, really fed into that too, because Life in the Fast Lane is all about living fast
Absolutely.
and overindulging and just living while you can till you die. Like,
makes you think you can't slow down and enjoy life
exactly.
the way it is. You always want the next thing. You always want the next step up, what you can get more of it.
Which is a super awesome message, one that you don't really hear people in that position talk about as often as they should. How this ain't all great. A lot of fake people, a lot of terrible decisions, but
It's transparency.
they kind of glamorize it. This album doesn't. They just straight up say, hey, this is rough, but I love how the song ends when he says that he essentially says there's no new frontier. He said this is basically this is it. There is no other one. So we got to make it work, even if we're all greedy, even if we're all needy. Like, essentially how paradise has to be found where you are. Yeah. Even if your paradise gets completely changed, you got to find it somewhere.
Yeah.
Which is just a perfect way to just put a little bow on the top of the album.
And again, that's just a message that it makes you feel. It makes you feel like, okay, these people, these literal rock stars, they're not much different than us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They may be chasing different things, but even they can get to a point where they realize, I like my life at home a little bit better.
Yeah.
I like my, wherever it's my regular life on a farm a little bit better. My regular life in the city a little bit better than this crazy lifestyle of cocaine, women, and
sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Exactly. And it's cool that this message is on, like, it sounds like a very upbeat, and it's just like a serene album, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sounds very serene throughout it, and you don't realize until you again dig deeper. Like, they're talking about some real stuff here, which I respect. Love this album, by the way. I'm so glad we picked this one, because I had never heard it, and now I feel like
it's crazy. It's great because I've been wanting to listen to it. Mm-hmm. You had just hardly ever been exposed to the Eagles, so it's really crazy. I'm a big Eagles fan, but I've been waiting for the right time to listen to the album.
Yeah.
And you had just never explored the Eagles. So you think you'll probably go listen to some more of the Eagles discography following this?
Well, now that you told me they have an entire greatest hits album that came before this, yeah, absolutely I will. That's insane to me. I had no idea. I literally had no clue. I thought this was like the album that got them off the ground, and then they just produced a bunch of great music afterwards.
See, that's what I thought too. But as soon as it said they had a greatest hits album, I'm like, you're kidding me. These guys were already huge, and they just decided, you know what? Let's get even bigger.
Let's drop one of the best albums of all time, and then
let's just influence generations upon generations of musicians. Good grief.
That's awesome. So I'll ask you this time, because you're usually the one that asks me. What are we gonna call this?
Yeah, what do we got to? I was actually over here trying to think about it.
For Panic at the Disco, what did we do?
We did Weinstein Polaroids, which is really convoluted in retrospect.
But it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine. And for Nirvana, we did Smash Guitars.
Smash Guitars.
So what are we thinking for this one?
Oh, goodness. Man, I'm trying to think of something clever because there's so much...
Pretty Boyfriends? Pretty Boys?
Pretty Pretty Boys. That's
Yeah.
a good one.
How many? Okay.
Yeah.
How many Pretty Boys out of 5 do you give this album?
4.7.
4.7
Out of
Pretty
5.
Boys. Okay, that is a high
I
score.
wanted to give it a perfect 5, but I don't want to say every album is perfect. Like I said, whichever one it was, Try and Love Again was just kind of a more mellowed out. I wasn't really super invested in it. That's probably the only sore spot. And even then it's not a sore spot, it's just a lower spot
Yeah.
that I can find on it. It is just exemplified my opinion that I already had about the Eagles.
Yeah.
They are one of the best rock bands of all time, and I enjoyed the absolute heck out of this.
So you would call this a strong 9, if you will, out of 10, if you're rating it out of 10.
Oh yeah, I would say.
Which
I would
makes
say
it, which is
definitely.
good because this is just not even, it's a weird coincidence, but I was giving it a 4.3 is what I would give it.
Were you really?
I was going to give it a 4.3 because
You're
I
kidding.
because I want to use these non-0.5 digits and the non-zeros, so that's going to add up to a
How did we end up getting a perfect
I
9?
have no idea, but that felt like a good number for me because like you
That's
said,
nuts.
it's because like you said there's a couple
I'm
moments
sorry,
in
that
there.
math was just too perfect. I'm not over this yet.
Again, that was not planned or anything. That was just what I planned to give ahead
No,
of
not
time.
planned at all.
We don't
just-
share these ratings with each other before.
No.
So that
was
means
nuts.
that means as a whole, this is
That's a 9.
Connoisseurs give this 9.
9.
Pretty Boys
Pretty
out of
Pretty
10.
Boys out of 10.
Hotel California by the Eagles.
Such a darn good album.
Absolute classic.
So good. And as always, you let us know what you think. Maybe you're not a fan of the Eagles. Maybe you have a close connection with this song. We want to hear y'all's story too. Just because we're the guys with the microphones doesn't mean that we don't want to hear what y'all got
You
going on.
probably know more than I do, that's for sure. So feel free to give
Honestly,
your input.
same for me though. Same for me. Only reason I know all this stuff is because I just Google it. I wouldn't have known it otherwise. Maybe there's some people who know so much more for so much longer.
I go cold turkey into these, so I hardly know anything. So feel free if you got any thoughts or any input. As always, drop it in our comment section. Drop it on our socials. We're gonna have Twitter, Instagram. Do we have Facebook?
We're gonna have some Facebook. We're gonna
For
have
the
TikTok. We're
moms
gonna have a
that-
little bit of everything, man.
Yeah, for any of the moms and dads that want to follow us.
And
on
all the
Facebook.
links are here. If you're watching a video, all the links are going to be here, and it's
so-
in the description. If you're doing a podcast,
Do you want to hold it? You want to hold up the
we're
links
very
real quick?
professional. Yes, sure,
Let's hold
sure.
up the
Here's.
Oh, that's heavy. Oh yeah. There we go. Oh, all right. Ooh, that was a good workout.
So next week you can join us again, and we are going to keep the morale going because we are going to take one big step into the world of hip hop. Let's go. That is going to be.
Let's go.
Gonna be loaded.
Okay,
Very
I'm not
exciting.
going cold turkey into this one. By the way, I will certainly know exactly. I will know much more about the subject for this next one. I'll leave it at that.
You don't want to miss it.
No, you don't.
See y'all next week. Connoisseurs on the record.
We're out.